أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي صدق الله العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khairan for tuning in and listening to this. I hope inshallah it will benefit you. This is the second one in the sessions that I'm providing to do with development and purification of the soul. And I'm going to step aside from what I originally produced, which was about the Naseehah for survival in the Age of Dajjaal. I'm going to do several series, and this is one of them, and that's another. Now, there's going to be one which is looking at our development, and another category which is going to be looking at the destructive elements that we need to be aware of. So the destructive elements, which I'm going to outline in this session today, inshallah, are going to be one of four, and I'll be producing material for each one so we can look at that. And the progressive elements are those things which are good, our good character side, our good abilities, and how to develop those. So we need to understand both sides. We need to learn about both sides and understand them so that then we can develop the one that we need to and control and subdue our negative side, inshallah. So this is how it's going to be, and as we've just started this channel, I'm recently new to this, but I need to share this information with everybody because that's how I feel about what's happening in the world and about my community, inshallah. So the title for today, this session, is Naseehah for the four enemies of the soul. Again, I use the word Naseehah, and inshallah, I will continue to use that word because that's how I see it. I'm giving Naseehah, advice. I do not claim to be anything or have anything of greatness. All I want to do is share what's benefited me. As Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said about the believer is one who, if he loves for others what he loves for himself. And I know that I have benefited from what I have been doing in terms of my search and my practice of spirituality, and I want to share that with those who have similar take on life. To be honest with you, all of us as Muslims should have this. This is the fundamental, most important, most crucial aspect of our existence, spirituality, because we're not bodies. The body is a delusion. The body we will die and it will be left in the grave or rot, but our souls, which existed before the body and it will continue to exist after the body, is who and what we really are. And it's the development of that soul that is all important, and the destruction of that soul, which is absolutely, all important to shaitan. So we need to be aware of this, our soul. So my Naseehah is to everybody in terms of what I've benefited from my experience, from my learning, and from my research. And I want to let you know how it benefits me. And then inshallah, I hope and pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants you all benefits as well. And as I say, it should be for everybody. We begin with this ayah from the Quran. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ثم لا أتينهم من بين أيديهم ومن خلفهم وعن أيمانهم وعن شمائلهم ولا تجد أكثرهم شاكرين. Then I will surely come upon them from before them and from behind them, and from their right and from their left, and then you will find most of them ungrateful. This is an ayah which is a series of ayat that are to do with a conversation between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and shaitan himself. And in this conversation, there are 2-3 such conversations in the Quran. In this particular conversation, when Iblis is told, shaitan is told by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you're going to go into the dunya with Adam al-Islam, at the descension of Adam al-Islam and Hawa radiyallahu anha, shaitan is thinking, I'm going to go down there with them. So he turns around to Allah ta'ala. Don't forget, he's furious at Adam al-Islam. He didn't bow down to Adam al-Islam, and as a result of that, he got cursed. He was prior to that, he was Iblis. He was known as Iblis, and then he became Shaitan. And there's a difference. Iblis was this handsome creature that was very worshipful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when he became disobedient, he was cursed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and became this disfigured, ugly, frightening creature we now know as Shaitan. So knowing what had happened to himself, he hated Adam al-Islam, and he wanted to destroy Adam al-Islam. So he thought, this is a great opportunity. I'm going to go to the dunya with him. This is what I want. I want to destroy him. So he turns around to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after Allah ta'ala gives him a respite. He begs for respite and Allah ta'ala gives him respite. Then he says to Allah ta'ala, I will surely come upon them from before, behind, right and left, i.e. 4 directions. I'm going to come at the Adam al-Islam and of course the children of Adam al-Islam, which is the rest of us. And then he concludes by saying, you will find most of them ungrateful. So let's have a brief look at this, the understanding of this ayah, inshallah, from the tafsir, books of the tafsir. This is a statement that shaitan makes to Allah Ta'ala about mankind. It implies that generally, whichever direction we turn to in life, shaitan will try to deceive us. He will, no matter what we try and do, when we try and do something good, he will be there to try and delude us from that. And if we try and do something bad, well, obviously he's happy with that and he will increase us in that. We may do it either as an accident, inadvertently, unknowingly, but he will increase it. So whichever direction we turn, in fact, in a sense also, whatever we try to do in life, whatever we set our minds to do in life, believe me, shaitan will be there to spoil it and ruin it. That's why as human beings, as Muslims, particularly believers, we are supposed to be on guard all the time in everything we do. So spiritually speaking, if we look at these 4 directions he's talking about, we can sort of try to represent them a little bit more in detail. Behind represent our past life. So in the sense that shaitan often does this to people, let's say you did something wrong, something bad a month ago, a year ago, 5 years ago, he keeps bringing this up in your mind. In your subconscious, it keeps coming in your mind. And that's where people often say, I'm plagued by what I did. I can't forget it. I can't put it behind me. Well, actually, the fact of the matter is that's shaitan constantly telling you, oh, you can't do anything good. You can't be good. Remember that what you did? That was you. Oh my God, how can you be good? So you have that holding you down. In terms of the right side is actually the good things in life. So the good deeds you do, for example, reading Quran or Salah. But how shaitan gets a share in that is this. I'll give you one example. You might say, okay, today I'm going to read a whole juz of Quran. Shaitan will say, oh, why a whole juz? You haven't got time to do a whole juz. That's going to take so long. Why don't you just read half a juz? So you think, yeah, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. I'll do half a juz. And this is a conversation which goes on in your mind. So you think you're saying it to yourself, that you're reasoning with yourself what you can and cannot do, and that you set your goals too high. But it isn't. It's shaitan. He's lowered your goals. But you thought it was yourself, because don't forget, shaitan will not appear in front of us. He will simply whisper into our hearts and minds. So you decrease the good deed into something less or half. On the left side is our bad deeds. And of course, shaitan causes us to do our bad deeds, but he's not the only one to make us do our bad deeds. And through the course of this session, inshallah, we will look at other factors that cause us to do bad deeds outside of shaitan. However, once we've done a bad deed, shaitan can try to increase it or make us repeat it. So as we increase it, it gets worse and worse. For example, a sister may wear a hijab, and then after a while she decides to take off the niqab. Then after a while she decides to wear a more colorful hijab. Then after a while she decides to wear a colorful scarf. Then after a while she starts to wear more designer type of dresses rather than the hijab itself. So what's happening is step by step, it's becoming less and less and less until it's completely ruined, and in the end she just takes it off. She just takes it off. So this is one way that the shaitan can make us do a bad deed and then increase it. Another way is that he can make us do a bad deed is that we simply do something which is from other areas. And again, we will look at that later in this session from some other source, but then shaitan will come along and make it worse. He will make us repeat it and make it bigger and bigger and worse. And of course, before is our future efforts. And that's what we want to do in the future. We want to pick ourselves up if we're down, and we want to try again, and we want to do something better, and we want to have a better life ahead of us, and have better plans for it. But shaitan will come along and he will hold us back. He will delay us. He'll say, you can do that later, not now, do it later. So either he will delay us, or he will ruin us by, again, reminding us of our past or the sins we've done on our left. Or, as on the right, he will try to decrease what is in the future. So these are some of the basic understandings of this ayah that the Mufassirin have said in terms of the 4 directions that shaitan is saying. But generally speaking, we can say that whatever direction we turn in life, whatever we want to do, there will be the element of shaitan in there, and therefore to be aware. So I want you to keep this in mind right now as we go on, because I'm going to move on from here to something else, and then I will come back to this at the end. So I want you to remember what I've just said here about the behind, the in front, the left, and the right directions of shaitan. So according to the great Imam al-Ghazali, rahimahullah, there are 3 enemies of the soul. Now, before I go on, I just want to point out something. Developing ourselves spiritually is a great thing. It is the most fundamental thing to us all. However, there is not just the struggle of going through the journey, because it is a journey, it does take a while. Nobody's going to become great overnight. It's not going to happen. Let's be realistic. However, at the beginning, I would like to say, and I'm going to deal with this a little bit more in detail later on, we need to put aside certain prejudices. One of the first ones right now I feel is the right time to say so is the scholars of the past or even present. I'm going to mention different scholars at different times in my talks, inshallah. We take the good from them. And if anybody has any prejudice, because we come from different backgrounds, we may come from different groups, different sects, different learnings and teachings, etc., so be it. But if you want to do this, remember, in the world of the soul, there is no madhab, right? There is no group. There is nothing like that. The soul is a pure entity. And all of us had a pure entity inside us. It got corrupted over time and over life in this dunya, but it was pure to begin with. We should not slander the dead, first and foremost, let alone a scholar who's dead. Their matter is with Allah Ta'ala. And scholars, just like us, there are human beings. They may have made a mistake. They may have made an incorrect fatwa. They may have something like this. It doesn't matter. That's between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not for us to then throw out all of their works on the basis of one or two issues here and there. So forget our prejudices against the ulama and take from the ulama what will benefit us from, inshallah. And if it doesn't, leave it. But do not slander and backbite ulama, especially when they are known amongst millions of Muslims to be a great shuyukh and have benefited millions. Allah truly knows the impact of such a person on the Day of Judgment. We don't know what will come of us. Let us leave out what will come of the scholars. So Imam al-Ghazali, rahmatullah alayhi, he classified three enemies of the soul. Number one, shaitan. Number two, dunya. Number three, the nafs. But these are the three in his works he has listed. Now, this was at his time and from his understanding. Now, Imam al-Ghazali, rahmatullah alayhi, for those of you who do not know about him, is one of the great spiritual teachers in Islamic history. And his fundamental works that he's done, one of the greatest is Ihya Ulumuddin. So if anybody wants to look into that, inshallah. But I'm taking much of what he has said as part of this session today, inshallah. Now, the nafs, it pulls us to sin. That's what the nafs does, to satisfy its bodily or physical cravings. The nafs is separate to our soul. Our soul is the real us, and the nafs is the body and the needs of the body, which can become very basic and very animalistic. For example, the need for food, the need for sexual satisfaction, the need for strength and developing our bodies, and so on and so on. So these kind of things are part of the nafs. Also physical characteristics. And that's the nafs, inshallah. And I'll talk about that a bit more in detail later on. The dunya invites us to its variety and attractions. So that's the dunya, the world. So plenty of cars to choose from, plenty of houses to choose from, dresses and clothes, shoes, etc. Material items, items in the televisions, mobile phones, and so on, computers, laptops. Basically, all the things that are on offer, on sale, on display in the dunya that you can buy, that can be more and more, have this one, have that one, bargains and so on. That's dunya, right? Material possessions. The shaitan is one who is now personal, just like the nafs. The dunya is external to everybody, but the nafs is personal because it's within us, and the shaitan is within us. He whispers doubt and disobedience to us about Allah Ta'ala. He whispers doubt and disobedience to us about Allah Ta'ala. A simple disobedience to Allah. You might think, I don't listen to shaitan, I don't disobey Allah. A simple disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is missing salah. Many of us miss salah. That's an obedience to shaitan and a disobedience to Allah Ta'ala, because Allah Ta'ala has commanded salah. Aqimus salah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran. Establish the salah. In fact, not even pray, but establish, meaning that 5 times should be just fundamental in your life. You shouldn't even have to think about it. It's there. You just do it without thinking. But many people they just don't pray. And they would never consider that, hang on, that is from shaitan. It's whispered to us, made something else important. We become habitual about it, and we just don't pray. Or we pray in an irregular fashion. This is all disobedience whispered to us from shaitan. And it's just one example. So now I've given you 3 enemies, the nafs, the dunya, the shaitan, as according to Imam al-Ghazali, rahmatullah alayhi. That leaves the 4th enemy. For his time, Imam al-Ghazali rahmatullah would not have counted this 4th enemy. However, I truly believe that were he here today, he would actually have included him. It's just that at his time, we're looking at, 12th, 13th century. That's a long time back. And as a result of that, he would obviously have not have counted him at that time. But today, yes, in the day and age that we're in, absolutely. The fourth enemy of the human soul confronting us all is Dajjal. That is the fourth enemy that is confronting us. No, it does not mean that Dajjal is out. I'm not saying that, no. What I'm saying is that the systems that are in place in this dunya, and I will talk about that a bit later on, inshallah, is from Dajjal. And I will talk to you a bit more about that later on. But just to give you a side issue connecting with the previous talk, a Naseehah for survival in the age of Dajjal. If you go to that talk, you will, inshallah, see, or if you've seen it, you will remember that I connected Dajjal to Ya'juj wa Ma'juj. And Ya'juj wa Ma'juj are in their hundreds of thousands, in their millions in the dunya. And Dajjal is the one. So one, the Dajjal is not here. But two, Dajjal gets his work done in the dunya through people that follow his way. Through people that follow his way. And he has a connection, a strong, distinct connection with Ya'juj, Ma'juj. And the fasad they have and will commit in the dunya is actually directed by Dajjal. So I include him as I believe it is appropriate to do so in this time and age. My basis for including Dajjal on top of Imam al-Ghazali rahmatullah alayhi is three are the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and that is the greatest evidence anybody can provide. What that evidence is? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, there will not be any tribulation on earth since the time Allah Ta'ala created the offspring of Adam alayhi salam that will be greater than the tribulation of Dajjal. So this is the greatest tribulation which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam warned us about. In fact, he said every Anbiya alayhi salam warned his ummah about. But obviously, as he didn't appear in the times of all the previous Anbiya alayhi salam, he's going to appear in our time. So that's why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made such emphasis for us about Dajjal. So it's only right that I include him as the fourth enemy of the soul. So here they are, the four enemies: Shaitan, Nafs, Dunya, Dajjal. And I'm going to go through each one briefly, and let's have a look at, in a little bit more detail, what each one is capable of doing and how they impact our soul in the life of this dunya. Don't forget, our soul, we begin this life how? We begin as a pure soul. That pure soul is radiant and is full of nur. And it comes from the heavens. And it comes to the dunya, into the womb of our mothers. And from there, the soul grows as a baby into an adult. And as we grow through life, the sins that we commit start to stain the soul and darken the soul and ruin the soul. But those stains coming from those sins are sourced to one of these four areas. And that's why we need to be aware of them. So the first one, the nafs. In terms of the nafs, this is the attack on our left side, and it is the pull of the nafs. These are the sins that we commit against other people. These are the sins that we commit against other people. They arise from feelings of greed, selfishness, jealousy, anger, and so on. These kinds of negative characteristic traits that we harbor in our hearts, these feelings, negative feelings, they are from the nafs, and they are the strength of the nafs. This is how the nafs takes over our good side, by using these feelings, which are strong, and you'll find in some people, there's a bit of everything of this. Otherwise, you'll find people who are particular about any wants. For example, somebody might be a very selfish person and become known as that. People say, oh, he's a very selfish person. Jealousy, you might say, well, she's a very jealous woman, right? So these people are often known for their particular expression of one of these, whereas it doesn't mean they haven't got the others. They've got the others as well, but the particular one that happens to be in most people is what they get to be known by. And so it can be so strong that it overpowers them and it overrides good sense. They cause us to commit crimes of murder, theft, rape, oppression, and injustice on others. And it doesn't matter who you are. Don't think, okay, the oppression and injustice, this is done by leaders such as Pharaoh, etc. No. Oppression, injustice, murder, theft, rape, all of these things can be committed by, yes, the person at the top in a very big leadership position, or it can be committed by individuals as well. And it is. So every single human being is accountable for himself or herself and is capable of committing any and all of these crimes, and we do. We can be oppressive in the home. The husband can be oppressive to his wife. The mother can be oppressive to her daughters, and so on and so on. It's wherever it is. We've seen oppression. We've all experienced it, inshallah. So it's not something that you think it's only there for tyrant rulers. It's there. Anybody can do it. And that's why, as I said to the beginning, development of the soul is there for everyone, no matter who you are, what you are. Development of our soul in order to earn Allah's pleasure and avoid His ghadab is necessary for all of us. Dunya. The things of the dunya are on our right side, i.e. they're usually the kind of things that are permissible, but the dunya invites us to overindulgence. Take more than what you need, right? From a simple thing like a plate of food, putting onto the plate of food more than you need, not finishing it, wasting food, to cars and houses and mansions and so on, right? Property and owning so much and becoming multi-billionaires and so on in a very selfish, self-centered way. All of this is dunya. The more we own, though, the more we feed our greed and the more accountability. Okay? Remember this. The more we own, the more we feed our greed. Right? Because to be honest with you, we actually need very little. Every human being, we need very little to live on. We need little in terms of food, little in terms of clothing, and where we want to live. All of this, we need just the amount that is sufficient for us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us about this in our accountability on Yawm al-Hisab. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, this is what you needed. This is what you actually had. He will compare the two, and He will ask us, why the extra? Don't forget, we're not going to take it with us. It's not going into our grave. All these millions that we have in the bank or whatever it is, these cars, houses, big houses, and so on, all these things, which I will deal with later in the topic on dunya specifically, but we don't need them. We'll not take them with us, and they detract from us and they feed our greed. So this is when we go wrong, and it has a bad effect on our souls. Dajjal. In terms of the Dajjal, all three of the other enemies invite the individual to sin, whereas Dajjal works en masse. He seeks to beguile people in their thousands or in their millions. He's not interested in a single person. In fact, if you look at the hadith, majority of the hadith speak about Dajjal and communities, Dajjal and nations, talking about how millions will follow him, how entire religious people, communities will follow him. So it talks about things in that sense. There's only one hadith about him killing an individual who's a believer who then comes back to life, and he affirms Dajjal. But there's a reason for that, and there's a sabak for that, and that doesn't take away from the fact that Dajjal works en masse. As I said, there's evidence from hadith concerning the actions of Dajjal. He sets false beliefs, systems, and movements in place that affect mankind in large numbers and for many generations. There are various belief systems that he's put in place. Again, as I say, he's not here, but he works through those who are evil in the dunya, who are already enticed to his way. And so they start to put systems and beliefs in place, and communities start to follow them. And that's the problem, you see. Many of us have been born into those systems without realizing it, because they were set in place before we were born. And our parents may have experienced that, or their parents for that matter. Some systems have been in place for a long time, hundreds of years. Other systems are happening as we see around us today. Although not here yet, as I say, Dajjal has impacted our lives from the beginning. He has set the world into the state it is in, and we are influenced by it. More changes are occurring in the world around us during our lifetime. We're seeing things right now. It's actually accelerated. There was a time you get one thing happening, and then for years or a decade, nothing new happened, and then a new idea would come about, or in another field, and so on. But now ideas are coming along in all fields. We have all sorts of movements, all sorts of uprisings that are happening, and they're all happening side by side. The world is becoming chaotic. Examples, I'll give you one of two or three of them. Feminism, self-determinism, and fashion. There are many. I'm just going to touch on some of these three. Feminism, first and foremost. Very dangerous, very destructive. And tragically, many of our Muslim sisters have fallen into this. Feminism is about empowering the woman, making her feel that she doesn't need a man, and that she can do everything on her own, and that she's independent. This is not right. This is completely wrong. We have to understand, we believe in Allah and we enter into Islam. And the literal definition of Islam and Muslim is to find peace, which is Islam, as a Muslim, to submit to Islam and find that peace in Islam by submission. So we submit. Submit to what? To the deen of Allah. So what Allah says, khalas, there is no other argument. And who created woman? Allah created woman. So who knows woman better than any other creature in the universe? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah ta'ala has said what the nature of woman is. Allah ta'ala has said what the nature of man is. Just take a look at the origins. Adam al-Islam is in Jannah. Adam al-Islam is in Jannah. Whatever he wants, it's there. So he's in Jannah. He has everything he needs. Yet there's something missing. And he senses it. But he doesn't know what, because don't forget, woman hasn't been created yet. There's no such thing. So he doesn't know what it is, but he feels a longing. He feels something missing from his life. But he doesn't know what it is because woman has not been created. So he doesn't know what it is. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being his creator, he knows what it is. So one day, Adam al-Islam is asleep and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes from him a rib bone and creates woman. And then when he wakes up, he sees woman, Hawa radiyallahu anha. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, now I'll make nikah between you. And the first nikah is performed by Allah between Adam al-Islam and Hawa radiyallahu anha. There are many things we can learn from this, but just in the context of what I'm talking about today here, it shows man cannot live without woman. Woman cannot live without man, in the sense that we are creatures that need companionship. And that companionship and understanding is found in our opposites, not in ourselves. A woman cannot deal with it within herself. A man cannot deal with it within himself. He needs a partner. And that partner actually is not another man. And for the woman, it's not another woman. It has to be an opposite. Why? Because we complement one another and we differ with one another. And those differences are a blessing, because sometimes a woman will say, I don't want to do this. And a man will differ with her, say, no, you can do it, and make her see something different. And then she goes ahead and achieves what she needs to. And vice versa. Sometimes a man feels, I can't do this. And a woman tells him, no, you can. And she reminds him of his abilities. And he realizes, and then he goes ahead. You see? So it's important. Self-determinism. Again, this is becoming quite widespread throughout the world. Independence, that I can do what I want. It's my body, it's my belief, it's my life. I can do what I want. So as a result of that, people have started to throw away philosophies and religions to the point of atheism. That now there's no need for even God. That I can decide my own self, my own rules, my own life. That's what it's becoming. And it's very dangerous. Fashion, subhanAllah, very destructive. Nothing has destroyed hijab more than fashion. And our sisters have to understand, our brothers have to understand this. Because fashion, wearing fancy clothes, nothing wrong with wearing fancy clothes and so on. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that everything has a halal form and a haram form. If a woman wants to wear fashionable clothes, she should do so in front of her husband. But tragically today, that's the last person they do it in front of. They do it out there when they go to weddings and they want to go to functions, but they don't dress up like that in front of their husbands. And it would work wonders for their marriage if they did. And vice versa. Many men put on their best and they go out there. They're out there in front of all the women of the world, but not there in front of their own wife. Same with the wives. They should be there in front of their husbands. And instead, fashion has ruined hijab and fashion has ruined marriages in this way. And again, it's a lengthy talk and I will go to that at some other point, inshallah. This is just a few examples. And all of these systems are put in place by Dajjal to ruin people en masse. So as we near Qiyamah, these influences are becoming more and more obvious around us. We just got to, take the blinkers off, really. We've just got to start to open our eyes, wake up to what is going on around us. Because it's becoming so obvious, you've really got to be having, your head buried in the sand not to notice by now. Shaitan. Shaitan is our ultimate sworn enemy. Allah Ta'ala said that about him in the Quran. Aduwwum mubin, Allah Ta'ala says. A clear, manifest enemy to you. He is your enemy. And those who are with him, don't forget, the friends of your enemy are your enemy. The friends of your enemy are your enemy. So those three we've just talked about, the Nafs, the Dunya, Dajjal, and Shaitan. And he will use all three of the previous enemies against us. He will take advantage of that and enhance their effect upon us. His waswasa, the whispering, is based upon the temptations of the other three. As the other three tempt you, the shaitan whispers, yeah, go ahead, do it, wear this, eat that, be like this, do this. And that whispering is enhancing the impact of one of those three. Using the strength of the three enemies and his own cunning persuasion, he seduces us to do wrong against the commands of Allah Ta'ala. That's the work of shaitan. Now, taking all four together, we can now return to the ayah from the Quran. An understanding that these four enemies of mankind work together in close cooperation, rather like a tag team. Now, I'm sure you've all seen wrestling, and they have tag teams. So sometimes they have two people on one side, two people on the other, and one of the two come into the ring and they fight with the other one. And as the one is slightly overpowering the other, or is being overpowered slightly, what does he do? He ticks his partner, and the partner comes in because he's fresh, and he comes in and starts to beat on the person who was almost beating his partner. So this is a tag team. So, and then this is how it works. So in the same sense is the work of these four. If you slightly overcome the nafs, dunya will get to you. If you overcome the dunya, Dajjal, the systems will try to get to you. If you overcome them, shaitan will try to get to you. So you'll always find one of these four attacking you. So this is one of the understandings of this ayah, that you could be facing any one of these four from the four different directions attacking you. So overcome one and you got the other. And this is why I said at the beginning, we need to have our guard up all the time. We are in the dunya, we're not in Jannah. You cannot lower your guard. So we have to be awake to things, and then we have to respond to those things to protect ourselves. The four directions of the attack of shaitan can now be seen. Dajjal is behind. That's the attack from behind. For he's set things in motion already in our past, the systems and beliefs and notions which we are born into the society, and we already find that people are doing these things. So we just grow up doing those things ourselves. We don't question it because everybody's already doing it. The dunya is on our right side with its attraction. So again, permissible things in the dunya and extravagant things in the dunya. And we have to be careful and selective. What do I need and what do I not need? What is sufficient for me and what is beyond my needs? The nafs on the left with its pull to sins. Of course, with the dunya and the Dajjal setting things out for us, it's easy to commit sins these days. Sins have become so easy. All we do is just get onto our phones. And you could be literally sitting next to someone who is committing zina on the phone, watching pornography on the phone, on the iPhone, and they're sitting right next to you. The husband could be doing this behind his wife's back. But we don't need to be behind the back now. You can just sit next to them in the car or whatever. And the wife could be doing it to the husband. And she's there in that car right next to him, and he has no idea. He's got his eyes on the road, and she's watching pornography or messaging someone that she shouldn't be doing. This is how the nafs is now pulling us to sin, and the dunya and the Dajjal has made it so easy for that to work. Again, a little bit of tag team work there. And like a strategic leader, shaitan is at the front. He's at the front. So he waits to see how much the impact on the left is, or the right, or the behind. And if you get through all of those, well, he's waiting at the front, just like a strategic leader, that I'm going to take him down if he overcomes my three henchmen behind. So if we somehow overcome the other three, shaitan will always try to stop us himself by standing before us. And inshallah, we'll look at that a little bit later on. There's even issues where somebody speak about how shaitan, at the point of death, as a person is dying and the angel of death is coming and the soul is being about ready to be taken, shaitan comes at that point to have one last go at you to get you to die on shirk. So subhanallah, and I'll discuss that in time to come, inshallah. So let's have a look at a lesson from everyday life just to put all this into perspective. Okay, we have a milk bottle. I prefer semi-skimmed milk, so that's why I got the green top. I do recommend everybody do the same because the blue top is too much fat in the milk. So a little bit of extravagance there, just a small point. But here we go with the actual example. It's morning time. You get up and you start to make your breakfast. But you find you have no milk. So you decide to go to the local shop to buy milk. You're in a hurry. You're about to have breakfast. You just need the milk. So your intention is, I just need to get what I need for breakfast, which is a can of milk. You get to the shop, and on arriving at the shop, you find that it's stocked full of so many items of food and grocery snacks, household items, all laid out in aisles, and there's a walkway through them that conveniently takes you past every aisle before guiding you to the till. So you look at that and think, you know, wow, that's how the shop is laid out. And you have to go through all these aisles and see all these foods before you get to the till. You notice there are so many varieties of each item. So many flavors of crisps, chocolates, sweets, cereals, canned items, and so on, that even if you do not like one flavor, there is another flavor that you would. Okay, so we got what? We got the need for milk. You come to the shop. The shop is got aisles of all sorts of things. It's laid out, stacked up. You've got varieties of things, and you have special offers. You notice there are labels notifying you of deals. Buy one, get one free, special offer sale. Though you did not think you had enough money, you feel that the deals make buying a few things manageable. So you're kind of tempted. Okay, so what's the lesson from here? Well, we're coming to a conclusion here. Having fought back the temptation to buy anything else, you finally arrive at the till with your milk bottle only. The shopkeeper takes your bottle of milk, smiles at you and says, "Just a bottle of milk, sir." You said, "Well, I promised myself just to pick up the milk. I don't need anything else for breakfast." The shopkeeper seems surprised and says, "Oh, but we have a special breakfast bar that you just have to try." Okay, let's interpret this spiritually, shall we? Let's have a look at this symbolically. The supplier providing the mass-produced variety of stock items to buy is Dajjal. Okay, so all these things we are ready to buy that are on the shelves, the shop is fully packed. That's, if you like, symbolically, that's Dajjal, creating the systems around the world. The prices and bargains, that's the Nafs, that makes everything so easy and tempting to buy, even when you don't need them. So the Nafs is saying, buy this, buy that. Yeah, you can get this, take that. Look, oh, we didn't know that. Oh, look at this. And the prices are there, the bargains are there to get you to do that. The displays showing the variety of each item, that's dunya. So as you know, I mean, you go for a packet of crisps, there's so many flavors, right? It's all one company, but it's so many flavors. And so many crisps now, so many companies with so many flavors, right? And that's just crisps. And you've got drinks, then you've got, chocolates, and you've got biscuits, and so on and so on. All of them, much variety in each. And finally, the shopkeeper encouraging you to buy something, even a small thing, is Shaitan himself. So if you get through the other three, the Shaitan is there at the end of the road trying to get you to do something. Because to him, even if one small thing, Shaitan is not in a hurry. Just do a little thing, just a little wrong here, just a little wrong there. And he knows this will slowly build up. He's not in a hurry. He's not in a hurry. So don't think it's just a small thing. That's what he wants you to think. It's a big thing. That's why in Islam we have a simple principle. What is forbidden in small quantity as much as in large quantity. For example, alcohol. Can we drink a bottle? No. Can we drink a cupful? No. Can we take a sip? No. Why not, you might say? I mean, a sip isn't going to make you drunk, and that is what it's about. Well, as I said, the principle in Islam is what is forbidden in large quantities is forbidden in small quantities. Forbidden means forbidden. That's the thing with Allah's law. The journey through the shop now is your life. That's our life. Going through that shop, avoiding excess, avoiding extravagance, and that's what is something for us to be very mindful of. And that's how we can interpret this very simple event, inshallah. Okay, our purpose in this world is to take only from the dunya what will help us in our akhirah, and not to be deluded by its many forms of attraction. The successful person is the one who is disciplined enough to go into the shop, buy the one or two things that he or she actually needs, and returns from the shop without being enticed into buying anything more. Can you do that? Think about it. I mean, just as an exercise, as a spiritual exercise, try that. Try to go even to a local grocery store, let alone supermarkets. I mean, that's just another level. Where you just go to a grocery store and think to yourself, okay, one item, pick an item, any item that you might genuinely need, and just go to the shop and pick that item up and go to the till. See how difficult it is when you look around the shop. And that's the thing, the life of this dunya. And if you can practice this, it might actually be beneficial to you spiritually, inshallah. Okay. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, be in this world as if you were a stranger or a traveler along a path. Very important hadith, and I just want to use this in our conclusive remarks about the subject for today. How do we act upon this hadith, which is a very important hadith for spirituality and self-development? The hadith teaches us to be a traveler who is on a path. A traveler who is on a path. When on a path, we do not stop at any place on the journey and decide to stay there. It's just part of the journey. Our focus is on getting to our destination. So we do not stop, for example, at a bus stop and begin to decorate it or buy things for it. It's a bus stop. Our point is to get to the other town, which is where our destination is. The bus stop is just a stopping point. And anybody who stops at a bus stop and starts decorating it or putting curtains there or something like that, you'd think they're crazy. Yet, this whole world is like that temporary stop, like that bus stop on the journey. That's how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has described it for us. And we stop at that bus stop and we start decorating it. We start living there. We've forgotten our destination. We should not get caught up in the decorating of this dunya and thereby forget our Jannah. The Akhirah and Jannah is our destination. We need to remove the desire for things in this world. When we do this, the Nafs will not have greed and yearn for things. The dunya will not then be able to tempt us with its variety. The Dajjal system will not be able to trap us. And the shaitan's whispers will not entice us to disobey Allah Ta'ala. So what do we need to do? Remove the desire for things in this dunya and remember the Akhirah. The other point in the hadith is that we become as a traveler or a stranger. This is to show that when we do develop our hearts to strive for the cause of Allah Ta'ala, we will be seen to be strange as we no longer fit in or are part of the deluded majority. This will be difficult and we need to be prepared for that. And that's the fact of the matter. We're going to be different. We're going to be seen to be different. And then it's going to be difficult for us because, we're not fitting in. We're not fitting in with but don't forget, it's the deluded majority. It's the deluded majority. And you have to take the courage and have the heart to move away from that. If any of the Salaf are here today, they will be treated as strange or odd as well, in fact. But they will be strong in their love and obedience to Allah Ta'ala and unmoved by what people think of them. We need to have the same courage and determination. We can gain this from two things. Believers should support one another. Allah Ta'ala says that in the Quran. In fact, He's specific. He said the believing men and the believing women. His specific mentions both are helpers one to the other. And the promise of Allah Ta'ala should be on our minds. That's our goal and that's our yaqeen. The promise of Allah Ta'ala that the Jannah is there. The Akhirah is forever. And we want to make sure that we get there, inshallah. Okay. If there's any questions, any further information people want to know, inshallah, these are my details, my email. Please do email me and I will respond to that, inshallah. Other than that, I hope that you have benefited from this session and I hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides us all to become people of taqwa, people of ihsan, people who have developed themselves spiritually and are back in touch with our souls and back in touch with the Akhirah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.